Hello everyone and welcome to the Ford Mustang Mach-E. There is a lot to discuss in this video review of this first ever product for Ford, and I'm going to cover all the topics as thoroughly as I can, but also try and do it in a timely manner because there's a lot to discuss. And when it comes to the nameplate and the styling of this product, I'll leave it to the end of the video because yes, this product did face a lot of criticism when it was first shown off to the world, but what I think we're looking at here is a very competent product, and for anybody that's getting into the EV world at really any price point, this Mach-E should be considered. So let's start off by talking about the basics. Currently we have two different battery sizes, a 75.7 lithium-ion battery pack, that's your standard model, and then the extended battery pack, which is 98.8 kilowatt hours, and that comes at a $7,000 premium here in Canada over the standard battery pack. Both of these battery packs can be rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, so one motor per axle, and that gives you different power and torque figures and different range numbers as well. Both of these battery packs can be charged up to 150 kilowatt charging speed. And with the model I'm testing out, I have the standard battery and all-wheel drive, so the Canadian government claims the range of this product to be 340 kilometers. Ford says that for this model, it has 266 horsepower and 428 pound-feet of torque. Now, I'm listing the numbers of the different power outputs for the all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive for the two different battery packs here below, just so I can convey that information but not make all these numbers too confusing for you. Now, moving away from that, let's talk about the different driving modes that you have in the Mach-E that influence the driving characteristics. They're called Engage, Whisper, and Unbridled, and essentially they're just different names associated to normal, eco, and sport, and the differences are slight. You'll mostly notice that with the unbridled mode, you have much heavier steering, a little bit sharper of a throttle, and then the Whisper, the eco mode, the throttle is lagged a little bit. And with all three of these different modes, you have different graphics that come up on the screen. I particularly like Whisper mode because we have these flowing waves with these shadows and lights bending around, and it's just a nice, pleasant thing to look at. The other big difference with the unbridled mode is it allows you to select the propulsion sound, which is a totally synthesized noise coming through the speakers, and it adds, I think, a little bit of passion, if we want to call it that, for this product. It is very slight, and if you were having a conversation or you had your music on or a podcast or anything, you probably wouldn't notice it, but it kind of sounds like there's someone in a Mustang V8 100 feet away making a very constant noise by holding RPM, something like that. It's nice, adds a little bit of character, but I honestly wouldn't mind a little bit more. Now, I'll go back into Whisper because not only do you have different driving modes, you have different driving setups in terms of the brake and the throttle relationship to driving the Mach-E, because as an EV, we have regenerative brakes, so a little bit of electricity can be sent back into the battery pack. You essentially start with drive, which makes the Mach-E feel like any other normal engine car you've ever driven in the past. But then you tap the button L, and this intensifies the regenerative braking feature a little bit, so that if you're coasting, you will come to a stop noticeably faster than what you would in drive. But then going further than that, you have the one pedal driving select mode, and this really makes the regenerative braking quite sharp. You would never really need to use the brake pedal at all. You would just have to balance your foot on the throttle, and even though it is very effective, it might be quite strange to some people that have never driven an EV like this before, or they want their vehicle to creep forward in traffic as opposed to applying the throttle. That kind of stuff I can adapt to and I can live with, but what I don't find myself adapting to particularly well is when you're reversing or parking. in one pedal driving mode, because through all of our lives driving vehicles, we've modulated the speed of reversing by just holding on the brake pedal if we're in a traditional automatic or a CVT or anything like that, and using the throttle to move backwards out of a parking space does seem quite weird to me. So for me, how I believe is the best setup for this Mach-E and best represents my driving style is to use L mode. So that's how you can change around the driving feel of the Mach-E. But what are the essentials like? Well, steering is certainly on the heavier side as standard. I like that. I like how it represents the weight of this product, and it is pretty accurate. No feel coming through the steering at all. But the suspension isn't smooth. There is a little bit of a bouncy nature to it. It's softly sprung, so when you hit big humps or bumps in the road, it isn't harsh or really that impactful, but you will certainly jiggle about on your seat if you come across a very broken up bit of tarmac. In this sense, this is where the Mach-E feels like a normal Mustang. That GT California Special I just drove, you know, it had a little bit of bounce in the suspension, it lunged forward a little bit, and I can feel that here in this product. So maybe it is a little more acceptable for people walking into the dealership and they give this thing a test drive. They can say to themselves, oh, okay, it has a little bit more of a sporty character. It isn't totally removed from the road. But if you're looking for absolute road isolation, the Mach-E doesn't deliver that. But I don't think that is at all a bad thing. When it comes to EVs, there are a lot of fundamental characteristics that stay the same. All of them are quiet. All of them have a lot of acceleration off of the line. And even though 266 horsepower and 428 pound-feet of torque won't light anyone's hair on fire, there's still great acceleration at low speeds, in-town speeds. If you need to quickly get out of someone's way, no problem, and you're easily doing another 20 kilometers an hour without even trying. But again, on the highway, if you need to quickly overtake, there's still enough juice at any given speed that the Mach-E always has the responsiveness that you'd want to get out of someone's way or for someone to get out of your way. And of course, it's an EV. Most of the driving in here is close to silent. There's certainly a little more road noise in this Mach-E, so the premium competitors, something like the Audi e-tron, I don't think have too much to worry about for the time being. So getting off of all that, let's talk about the interior, because yes, the screens are a dominant part of the user experience, and on the most part, I think they work quite well. I would like a little more processing power behind this 15.5-inch center screen, which controls almost every function in the Mach-E. There's been a couple times where you're switching between Apple CarPlay and the car settings and maybe your climate control functions, and it stumbles a little bit. It can at times feel like a 5-year-old iPhone. Perfectly usable, but you know there's faster stuff out there and you wish that it could be as responsive as that. Now, where Ford has really succeeded in this product in my eyes is the interior design, because here we're in a cabin that is largely black plastics and leathers and leatherettes. And in most situations, in any other product, I think it would be quite a drab and dark space. But Ford has used all of these different materials in such a clever way that I think there's a lot of real charm in the cabin of the Mach-E. I love the fabric for the sound system all the way across the dashboard. Makes it look like it's a feature of a home or movie theater, that big sound bar under your huge 70-inch screen. The leatherettes are pretty good and there's lots of stitching throughout. Even though there's a few hard plastics across the cabin, like that one that I just scratched across the dash, none of it feels cheap. None of it feels like Ford has cut corners to get the Mach-E to the price point of which it is. The cabin design and all of the storage that you have on this multi-leveled system here in the center console, some fairly decent sized door cards, I think is truly tremendous. It isn't perfect. I don't find these seats to be particularly supportive for a tall guy like me. I'm 6'4". I would like another 3-5 inches of thigh support, and I don't think the bolstering is all that thick. So if you ever actually want to push the Mach-E round a corner, you find you really slide out side to side and you're gripping hard onto the steering wheel just because you've got nothing in the seat to hold you in place. But the foam and the padding seems reasonably comfortable enough that I could go on as long as the range would allow me for a highway drive in the Mach-E. Moving over to the second row, I'll say that as 6'4", I can sit behind myself with very little complaint. There's just enough headroom so I can sit at a relaxed position. Not too much foot room, but because we have a flat floor and that center console space doesn't really impede in that space at all, I could stretch out my legs and be perfectly fine. I'm a little disappointed that in the Mach-E we don't have three-way splitting seats or some kind of ski pass-through. I would have liked to see that. And dropping the rear seats down, they go pretty flat, not totally 180 degrees to the boot floor, and there is actually 2 levels to the boot floor. So if you need a little more space, you can drop it down about 3 inches. And then of course you have the front, can't forget about that. That's a nice little space that you can use as, let's say, a cooler box, because you have all of these divided sections where if you ever wanted to go out for some drinks with friends, and of course I'm talking about the non-alcoholic kind, you can throw some ice in there, and because there's a drain, it can all be wiped down and ice can drip out, no worries at all. You'll see that the security cover in this product is one of those thin twist and collapse screens that I've seen in a few other car products. Now, I like that it's here. I'm sure it saves an incredible amount of weight over a hard, thick plastic security screen, and because you can twist and fold it up, you could just throw it under the false fall, no problems at all. So to conclude my thoughts with the Mustang Mach-E, I think this is a very competent product, and for anybody looking to make the switch to an EV, there's nothing that's particularly difficult or hard to wrap your head around with this product. It's just a very good car, and I'm now going to separate the conversation about the vehicle itself and sort of the name Mustang Mach-E and the marketing campaign behind this product, because yes, it's called a Mustang and it shares no other components with any other Mustang on sale today, not even the badge. The badge is different to what you'd see in the traditional Mustang. So why did Ford do it? Well, I think it's for 2 fundamental reasons. One, so that they can have sort of this outrage marketing approach where you make enough people angry or invite enough criticism so that there is a conversation. And if there's a conversation, then the word is getting out. And I think Ford has been very successful on that front. The second reason is that if this was any other Ford EV SUV that looked any different, had a different name, I also don't think people would be as interested in it. But because it has Mustang badges on the outside and it has some tail lights and a rear haunch that look like a Mustang, it's going to get people that aren't aware of all this controversy now aware of it. And so they'll go home and type in Mustang SUV and the Mach-E will show up. Many congratulations go to Ford for this product. It's a vehicle that I think will serve them well. And given how much attention I've had driving this product for the last week, it's something that if I had to put an EV in my garage, this Mach-E really would be at the top of my list. So thank you very much for taking the time to watching this video, and I hope to see you again on the channel soon.